Welcome to the Beyond the Glove podcast presented by JustGloves. Leather, stitching, and laces, that's a glove. But there's a world around baseball and softball gloves that most don't know, and that's where Beyond the Glove is coming in. And to make that apparent in our inaugural episode, we have with us one of the JustGloves marketing team's favorite people, Senior Director of Brand Marketing at Rawlings Sporting Goods, Lindsey Naber. Lindsey's going to help us understand the Gold Glove Awards like we've never known them before. She'll take us through what a day in the life of a Rawlings employee might look like and explain what Rawlings has done to exist for 130 years as a pillar of excellence within the sporting goods industry. Welcome to the show, Lindsey.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're just going to dive right in on the Gold Glove Awards. They were recently announced, and to me, the Rawlings Gold Glove Awards they're in my opinion, the absolute marketing genius. There's just something different about the Gold Gloves. We got our MVP, Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, all that stuff. And they come on their assigned days, and we kind of forget about. We remember who won, but we don't talk about them or debate them anymore. But with the Gold Gloves, it's like a week to 2 weeks afterwards, we're still talking about them. And why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a lot of different subsets of the awards. So, for instance, we now have the finalists. We added utility players last year. We have the team awards, in addition to all 18 position players. And then we integrated the platinum, the fan voting aspects. So I think that if you spread all of those out, it makes for a comprehensive conversation around defense. And the award platform in itself is always evolving. So I think that makes for a long window of conversation around the topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's, there's all sorts of awards out there, and we can crunch numbers, and I know defensive metrics are kind of wild these days. But I kind of love the mystique of the voting, where you got the coaches, you got a little bit of the defensive metrics that go into, and just when you're having a conversation about defensive excellence, someone might say, well, like, I don't know about that player's defense. You're like, hey man, he's won a Gold Glove award, so it's and it just keeps the conversation going even further. How is that with the voting process? What all does that entail necessarily?
Yeah, I completely agree. Having a Gold Glove just legitimizes your defensive ability. It gives you bragging rights, so to speak. And it's a bit of a mixed bag, because there is an exact science to the voting process, but there's also a little bit of wiggle room that isn't as defined and gives the managers and coaches a little bit of leeway outside of the sabermetrics. So up to 6 managers and coaches can vote on each team, but they can't vote for anyone on their team. That's been consistent for a long time. And then there's the sabermetrics element that plays a role as well, but it's not entirely based on just a number. So then I think that keeps things a little bit, up in the air as far as who's going to win it. Players have to play a certain amount of games to qualify. So whereas you have other defensive awards that are just based solely on a number, this one has a little bit of the an intangible aspect to it. So I think that gets people fired up in both a good way and a bad way. If their favorite candidates don't win, and I always repeat, we don't choose the winners, so stop directing those angry calls and emails to me. But we always make sure that we try to educate people on how they are decided upon, because you're bound to get some people that say that they're irrelevant, they don't matter anymore, or their favorite player. And hey, I'm a fan. I'm based in St. Louis, a lifelong Cardinals fan. My guy Nolan Arenado, one of our key endorsers, didn't get one this year. So
I know,
heck, had we had a say, he would have. If it were up to me, but I respect the process enough and know that it's a bigger conversation. So. That's what keeps things exciting, I think, and a little bit unknown until the winners are fully announced.
Mm-hmm. No, that is interesting to think about. We're in JustGloves. We're in Kansas City. So Lorenzo Cain, I remember for the Royals, I think he only won one Gold Glove, but he was like known as this awesome center fielder for Kansas City for so long. And I actually think his defensive prowess, what people talked about, it only improved because it took him so long. Like we continued to talk about him because he didn't have one,
Mhm.
which just goes back to the mystique of the award. No,
And
it's
that's where I
definitely
like that
awesome.
we named finalists too, because I do think that there should be, I don't want to say honorable mentions because if you're not first, you're last, but it's still, it's important to recognize some of those guys and maybe give them a little bit of ammo in the subsequent years to chase that. He's been a finalist for 2 or 3 seasons and now he finally won one. So especially if you have repeat winners like a Nolan Arenado, who's next in line that would be winning if he had an off season. So I do like that we introduced the finalist aspect as well, and it gets the teams competing against each other too to see who's going to have the most winners. So I love this time of year for that reason.
No, and you mentioned the multiple winners in a row, and I always, you just think of like there's Greg Maddux and Jim Cott, and then Brooks Robinson as well. With just, I know sadly we just lost him, but he is, absolute legend. I just love that. Like even now, I can like think of those names of all the people who have won so many times in a row.
Yeah,
so
and I'll have to show you on our next call, but we have photos in our old catalogs, and I just pulled them for the opening video for the Gold Glove event. But we have Brooks with his, I think, 16 Gold Glove awards, and then we have one of Ozzy where he's laying down posing by his 13. It's so cheesy, but I love it. So it's
I know
it's so cool.
No, I was just gonna say the Brooks Robinson one is like legendary, isn't it? Because he's just like sitting there and they're just like trophies nonstop, like laying.
No
on
big
top.
deal.
Yeah.
Got a lot of gold behind me.
That's awesome. But yeah, so I hit on this briefly earlier, but so we've got our finalists, which we came out with a couple weeks back, and then we just had our winners announced on the special episode of Baseball Tonight on ESPN, correct?
Yep.
And go ahead, Noah, if you can expound on that. How long have they been doing it with ESPN?
At least 20 years. So
okay, nice.
Yeah, and they've been such a great partner for us, and it's always a little bit of craziness because we get the winners' names and then we're coordinating on-set interviews and because we want to add that colorful context. And I always love it because it seems to be such a good mix of first-time players winning, or first-time winners rather, getting their Gold Glove, and then veterans who have had a few of them, and to see their reactions that are excitement through and through for everyone. So that's always really special. Now, I wish they were all Rawlings endorsers, but I'm not going to lie. Sometimes when they're not, it encourages them to come over to our side because they want to wear that gold patch. So that's been a working advantage for us. But yeah, the ESPN show is great. It's just, highlighting the prestige and legacy of the award, and they always do such a great job producing it. And like I said, getting those great interviews and feedback on what it means to win one for an athlete in their career.
Nice. And then you touched on it, just like getting to see whether it's their Brooks Robinson. And you weren't around for that, but his 16th in a row. And then like guys who have won it for their first time. Has there ever been do you have like one memory that sticks out as like that was just absolutely fantastic reaction to winning?
Yes, one fresh in my memory, and again maybe it's because I'm a Cardinals fan, but
no, it's all good. Go ahead.
Brendan Donovan. So he won our first utility Rawlings Gold Glove Award. So that in itself was an honor. But he was at our event and just he couldn't believe it. He was like, earlier in the season, I'm in the minor leagues. I just got called up, and here I am with a Gold Glove Award. And he had a great question. I remember he said, when I get my award, do you know which glove is going to be on there? Because if he's playing infield, outfield, whatever. So I was like, actually, what do you want on there? We'll do what you want. But he was just, he had a hard time wrapping his head around it. And I just loved the fact that he was so humble about it. And it meant so much to him. So yeah, that's one that sticks out in my memory very clearly.
I'm gonna guess that you guys didn't make him like a 2-glove one.
No,
that had like a 2-headed.
Some people ask, they're like, "Will he get a different design?" I'm like, "Oh, it's just we'll keep them similar to the others."
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
So you guys, and then you have the Baseball Tonight, and then that's not the end of it either. You guys actually have an award ceremony, correct?
We do, yeah. And then at that ceremony, so when the gold winners, after they're announced, it opens for platinum voting. So out of all of the defenders, fans can vote on their favorite in each league, one for AL, one for NL. And so at the event in New York City, where a lot of players are getting their awards in person, being presented to by Hall of Famers, which is also cool, seeing these players around some of their heroes, just being starstruck. That's always interesting to see. But then we announced the platinum winners at that event, and we also announced the team winners at that event. So the surprises keep on coming. And so that's why we call it the Rawlings Gold Glove season, because it really is just a constant celebration of defense. And it's exciting just how the award platform, like I said, has evolved to what it is now.
And I'll let you plug in here. So the Platinum Award is open to fans, correct?
Yes.
For their voting. So how do we, if someone, like, if they want to, so after tonight, they'll be able to start voting? They can right now, actually, because the winners have already been announced.
That's right. Yeah, on Rawlings.com. And it'll go to 11:59 Eastern on November 9th. And then we'll announce the winners at the event on the 10th.
Nice. That's awesome. And I think you said this, but it's in New York City, correct?
Correct.
Nice. That's just an awesome,
it's a great
you got the
setting.
Gold Gloves in New York City. I saw the pictures last year. I was looking. It's like in like a nice little venue, right? Like it's kind of a
pretty fancy at the Plaza Hotel, you know. And,
man.
Yeah, it's really done up and prestigious. And then we also do, as a new thing, an event at the MLB flagship store the day before, where we have some of the winners, some Hall of Famers come, and they do meet and greets with the fans, and you could get your picture taken with the award. So it's sort of a way to get fans involved that aren't able to necessarily attend the event with the players. They could still meet some of the current and past Rawlings Gold Glove Award winners.
Nice. So if we have anybody listening up in New York, you guys better get over there. I would love to. I'm just thinking about, for myself, obviously never got close to this, but I always watched, there was a baseball documentary by Ken Burns, like 9 innings, and I was obsessed with Brooks Robinson when I was little. Like, I can't imagine what it must have been like to be like, I'm sure Nolan Arenado must have got one from him at some point, and like that has to be so cool.
It's going to be weird this year without having Brooks, because he has been a fixture at all of these events, and it was hard. You know, I'm helping put together some of the intro videos, and we have a special tribute to him, and we put a few nods to him in the opening video to welcome everyone. But we're just used to seeing him as a friend of the brand, and I remember just being backstage with him and him just telling stories about, you know, early in his career, and I'm just like pinching myself, like, am I standing next to Brooks Robinson? And just couldn't be a better human being. So he will be missed, and just a great friend of our brand and a representative of the sport.
Nice. That's awesome. When I was like, I remember watching a Jim Palmer interview over the last few weeks, and it was like, that was the most apparent thing, was just how much he was loved by everyone and what a good guy he was. So, but sticking here kind of with like the history just of the Gold Glove Award, I wanted to make sure, I feel like this is not out there very often when talking about the Gold Gloves, but it's just how they started. And with Elmer Blasco, I believe is the name of who worked at Rawlings, who is the actual inventor of the Gold Glove Award. And if there is any knowledge out there of him, I'm pretty sure it would have come mostly from you. Is that correct? Or I think you were the one who kind of spearheaded an attempt.
For the award's 50th anniversary, back in 2007, I was tasked with digging up as much historical information. And, you know, shame on us, we haven't done the best job of organizing all of our archives and whatnot. So, you know, I talked to some people here, and they gave me that name of Elmer Blasco, and I was lucky enough to be able to interview him before he sadly passed away. But he gave me the firsthand account, and it's a pretty wild story. Just, you know, him recognizing the need to reward solid defense at the pro level, which obviously that notion is what it is today. But he had partnered with a local St. Louis company that still is here to this day. It was known as Brown Shoe back then. It's Solaris now, but he worked with them to get their ladies' house slippers, the material that was used on it, the leather. He had that fashioned into the first glove that won on the award. And that's probably the number one question I get about the award is people can't believe it's an actual glove made out of that gold leather. You know, they think it's like a bronzed version or, you know, just a replica of sorts. But no, it's that leather, you know, they use. We no longer use the lady slippers leather. We have our own. But it's really cool that it originated that way. And The award has gone through a few iterations, but we gave it a full-fledged makeover in 2007, and it's really high-end looking, and it's still reminiscent of its first version, but just modern. And it's funny, another little anecdote. I remember Ozzie Guillen, we were getting ready to present Mark Burley's Gold Glove Award in Chicago. And Ozzie Guillen is managing the team at the time, and he's in the dugout and looks back at me and he said, why don't my awards look like that? Can I get my awards traded in to look like that? And I'm like, you're going to have to call our pro department. I didn't know what to say. It kind of scared me a little bit. But yeah, he was dead serious asking if he could get his awards updated. But yeah, I love the nod that we stayed true to the original origin story of the award itself and what it means. And it's our award. A lot of people think that it's some sort of sponsorship that we do with it, but we've tried really hard to make sure people understand it's a Rawlings defensive award, even though we don't pick the winners. It's near and dear to our heart, and it's probably our biggest brand and company asset.
Yeah. And also, this is actually pretty cool. I found this out preparing for this interview. You can still find Elmer Blasco's obituary on like the Chicago Tribune. You can, because I was looking at it, and yeah, it's really cool. You're mentioned in it, and his dad. They really honored him. Like they did a fantastic job.
Oh, I know his family was so proud. I remember them having a honorary night for him. I think at maybe one of his schools that he attended, and they were asking for input from us, and I was like, oh, we'll gladly do that. So it's so cool. Like, I can't imagine leaving that kind of legacy on a company, a brand, and the sport, what it means today. So that's really neat. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll have to look, if you just type his name in, it's like the first thing that comes up. So, no, that's fun. And kind of sticking with you're discussing the trophy, another awesome aspect of the trophy that I love is that if you're a Rawlings, if you use the Rawlings Gold Glove, you mentioned earlier, you get on your game glove, you get the gold patch. But I believe on your trophy that you get, it is a gold version of your exact Rawlings glove that you use.
That's true,
game, right?
Yeah. So it's made to their game day specs, and that's another benefit of being a Rawlings guy if you win. And for the non-Rawlings athletes, they get just a standard version, depending on if they're a fielder, a catcher, or first baseman. But yeah, that's something we pride ourselves on. We want it to be as authentic and specific to them and their game. So that's a really cool feature of it.
Nice. That's awesome. No, the trophy's fantastic. With our relationship with Rawlings, we have a trophy here and we use it for content. Like it's so cool to have
heavy,
one here.
Isn't it?
It is, yeah. We have a whole room. It's just the Rawlings room. It's like a breakout meeting room. And it's cool that it's got the trophy over there in the corner and then the placards of like all the individual players that have won. So
I'll work on yours for this year because I always have to send you a new batch every season.
Yeah. No, it's all, yeah, it gets decorated because we got the base and all that. It's really cool. So, but yeah, so just kind of getting back, we dove right into the Gold Gloves and we kind of skipped over kind of you and like how you got to Rawlings. And you mentioned this earlier, but it sounds like you are a St. Louis native your whole life.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been here my whole life. Yep.
Very cool. And were you and you mentioned it seems like the passion for baseball is definitely there. Did you grow up? I've learned I have a little bit of family in St. Louis. I'll break in here. I'm so impressed with the St. Louis baseball culture. Everybody knows what's going on with the Cardinals at all times. It doesn't matter if you're old, young, boy, girl, it's like everybody knows what's going on, even if they don't really care because it's just such a part of the culture. My mom's from there, so I kind of have, I love the Royals, but like when the Cardinals do good, I have to go for the Cardinals too. So, right. But yeah, did you play softball growing up?
I did, but not at a high level or anything.
Okay.
I remember to the day, this is kind of funny, and probably shows my age, but my dad, when I was in like first or second grade, the Cardinals partnered with the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and they had this article you could read about Cardinals baseball, and you had to answer all these questions, and he made me fill it out in the newspaper and send it in, and I won. And again, it was like you just answer the question, send it in, you win. But the Cardinals gave me this like great prize package, and ever since then I was like immersed. I was such a fan. I remember using my birthday money to go buy a Cardinals Ozzie Smith baseball. And so then it became my dad and I's thing, like a way to bond. And I also joked that we weren't allowed to watch TV unless it was Cardinals baseball. So
Nice.
from a very early age, I became just immersed in baseball, and especially with the Cardinals. And I had an older brother that played select, so I was around the sport quite a bit. And I said, I played, but not past, high school or college or anything. But then I knew I wanted to, I thought I'd want to be a baseball beat writer. So I went to University of Missouri, known for their journalism program, and studied journalism and advertising. And while there, I interned for the athletic department. I use that term interned loosely because it was unpaid. It was, going to all the games and just helping out with whatever they needed, from, fan interaction to putting the kids in the inflatable bubbles at the halftime show to helping out with passing out magnets of the baseball team. But really that cemented my desire to sort of go into the sports industry and in any capacity. And so it came full circle. Coming out of school, I saw the job opening for Rawlings in the Post-Dispatch. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to go for it. If anything, I'll practice my interview skills. And I just went through a series of interviews, and I don't know if this is allowed nowadays, but I remember my boss at the time, because he knew he'd get a lot of applicants just given the brand name and just being in sports, he had us, any applicant, you had to write an essay about, and I guess that was a good way to weed out people who weren't serious, but we had to say what Rawlings could do to be more relevant to the 12 to 17-year-old, and what our favorite brand was and why. And I remember this distinctly, and this was back in 2005. So I said, my favorite athlete at the time was Jim Edmonds, because and it's not the case now, it's since evolved, but I liked him because he had a little bit of more swagger when he played. But I remember saying, I don't know what Rawlings could do to be more relevant to a younger male athlete, because I'm not a younger male athlete. So I remember asking my cousin, who at the time played select, what he thought. And he was like, oh, if I could get a glove like all the players and customization. And not that I was, foreshadowing how big customization would be, but I think what caught my boss's attention was the fact that it wasn't what I thought. It wasn't something that I, had a feeling about or an instinct about. I went straight to the source. And he told me, he's like, yeah, that was the only person that, took the time to do informal research, whatever it may be. But he's like, you took the time to like ask what they wanted, not what you felt. And I think that's a common place to be in marketing, you especially when you have former athletes in roles. And that's great. It can provide a lot of insight into what you do. But at the end of the day, you have to stay current with your audience and know that you could have great feelings and hunches about things, but it's ultimately what they think and what they want and what they like. So, that was 18 years ago, and I'm still learning. I'm still being challenged. The company is still growing in many ways. So, I really lucked out, but all started with the St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
Hey. There you go. No, we don't see that anymore. Like newspapers having. Did you? I'm wondering. Just curious. For me, I would have been like, I'm gonna make this my idea. Like, did you say that you interviewed your cousin like on the thing? Where you're like, well, I asked my cousin. Oh, you did? There you go. Nice. Look at you.
Always that way, just because. I'm big on. I always say in the sports world, there's no truly new idea. It's, what's old is new again, and vice versa. And sometimes I tell people it's not rocket science, what we're trying to do. It's like, just make a really great product that performs, and the rest will figure itself out. And I think that's what's great about the Rawlings brand. We're never trying to be someone we're not. We're not always trying to come out of the gate being the hottest brand. But people will always associate us with performance and quality. And that's been that way since the Bill Doak in the 20s to the Rev 1X, in recent years. So we have to stay true to that.
Nice. Nice. So, okay. So that was 05. And so now you're the senior director of brand marketing at Rawlings, and that's a big title. just can you unpack just a little bit of like what you do and like your day to day at Rawlings?
Yes. I don't have a typical day. And that's why I have to always have a game plan the night before. What do I have to get done? So like, I'll just give you a sampling of today, what I did. I worked on some signage plans for our new headquarters building. What slogans are we going to use on certain walls? And in the pro custom glove design room, what, fixtures do we want? I worked on finalizing some press releases about the minor league Gold Gloves that are going to be announced coming up. I worked on some videos to promote the Gold Glove. We have a new factory store being constructed in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So working through what the Hit Tracks cage is going to look like and, what sort of netting we need. Then, worked on some World Series pie charts of how many players of the Rangers versus the Diamondbacks use Rawlings. So, yeah, it's never the same day twice. And I think that's why you have a lot of lifers here at Rawlings that have just spent decades here, because it's something new every day and never the same day twice. And a lot of balls in the air at any given time, no pun intended.
I love that you mentioned that right now, because for me and my position here at JustGloves, so like one of the big things that I do is like I write the blog. So, and it's always awesome when I sit down to like write a blog and I realize like if I were to go back in time to talk to 10-year-old Ben, if 10-year-old Ben knew that I was writing about baseball for my career at 33 years old, he would be ecstatic. And the way that you just described, which I can't imagine just you thinking of yourself as the girl writing into the St. Louis Cardinals. She would have been thrilled with that day that you've had. Like, I'm sure you're exhausted, but no, that sounds like a pretty incredible day. So
it is. And I pinch myself, and I was just telling my coworker this, like, there's always going to be some bad times mixed in, but at the end of the day, we're not saving lives. We're enhancing lives, and making things fun for people. And I'm always proud, when I go in the airport, I'll have my Rawlings bag and people always like, I love that. I had my first glove. And like, that is the best part, hands down, of my job is like, okay, we make a product that has brought, I know it sounds cheesy, but like so much joy to people's lives. And they don't talk about bats that way, so that's something that I take great pride in, and that we're always challenging ourselves. We're always trying to, stay true to who we are, but also dabble in new technologies and challenge people's traditional way of thinking of us. So that's what keeps it exciting. And I never take a day for granted in what I'm doing, and it's really rewarding and fulfilling.
Nice. That's awesome. It sounds just with my position here at JustGloves, like we get to meet with you guys pretty often, and just for a big thing for people nowadays is it's not just getting that job, but it's like getting a job that that you think you're going to love and like going to be excited to go to each day. And I've always been really impressed. Whenever we meet with the Rawlings team, it's only through like a Zoom meet, but every time I leave the meeting, I've commented to my wife and to like other workers around here. It's like, they look like they have a lot of fun, like at Rawlings. And like, I was like that team looks like a really fantastic team to be a part of. And what do you think? What is it about, and you kind of touched on this a little bit already, but what is it that has like allowed Rawlings? It sounds like they've got a great culture. What sets that culture apart from like other? It sounds like you've been there the whole time, so you might not have anything to compare, but just from what you hear your friends talk about.
It's a great question, Ben. I think it's we have really solid leadership here that like my boss, Mike Thompson's been here 40 years, and so he is able to tell us like about where we were, and then he also respects this younger group that we have that has just started and wanting to do different things with the brand. So I think it's everyone's open-mindedness of what Rawlings means and what it should mean. And at the end of the day, I think everyone's just pulling from the same end of the rope, and there's been times where we challenge each other and push back on each other, but ultimately everyone here is wanting to win, and we're all pretty competitive. And I'll tell you,
Yeah.
like it's so weird, but in a good way, working alongside of our old competitors with Easton, because they for so long you're competing against them, but now we're all teammates. And I think that was a really good thing for our culture, because it showed us like an inside glimpse into how our former competitor handled things and did things. And so everyone, again, was very open-minded, like, hey, they do that better than us. Maybe we should be listening to them. And I don't even want to say us versus them, because it's us now, So, but that was everyone being open to it. And so I think that actually worked out better than we anticipated. So it's just repeating what we do well, and then leaving the door open to things that we can improve on, and being willing to do that. And also at the end of the day, just having fun, like having our annual softball game where everyone gets way too into it and tries to relive their glory days. That's why we have a recreational game now, in addition to a competitive game. And,
Okay, nice. There you go.
You'll have people playing catch in the hallway, and it's just
That's fun.
realizing like we're all really blessed to do what we're doing, and we have just some good people here.
Nice. That's awesome. No, it's just being able to work. We've had a few events kind of similar to what you've described, and it really just makes it a great, when you enjoy the place you work, it really, really helps. And Rawlings has been as I mentioned earlier, pillar within the sporting goods industry for 130 years. They're more than a brand amongst baseball and softball players, is what I would say. Ball players, I think, have the same passion for Rawlings as like bikers do for Harley Davidson.
Does it?
And if the ball playing industry was edgier, I think that we would see more tattoos with Rawlings on them or something like that.
I'd be okay
So
with
I have to ask, have you seen a Rawlings tattoo before?
No, but funny story. Years ago, someone wrote in, and he loved the brand so much that he named his daughter Rawlings. And
What?
yes, and this was like 15 years ago. And he sent me a
Nice.
photo, and I sent a Rawlings care package, of course, like a little baby glove and this. I've kept in touch with that family, and now Rawlings is a high school softball player. She now proudly swings the Rawlings mantra bat, but I've kept in touch. So every year he writes back, and he's like, she's another year older, and it's crazy. I didn't know Rawlings could be a first name, but hey, I'm not mad about it. So
That's
She will
awesome.
be an endorser of ours for life.
I'm trying to think. There's other brands that like more easily lead into a first name that are out there. So I like that there's someone's using that as a first name.
And
That's
not
awesome.
as a pet name. Like Troy Tulowitzki had his dog, he had two, Cal Ripken and Rawlings. So I could see that for a dog, but I was like, hey, a human works too. So yeah, that's a great tribute to us.
That's incredible. Wow, nice. Better than a tattoo, because you can always hide a tattoo.
That's
if it's bad, but you can't. Your name is going to be out
change
there.
your name.
So.
Well, I guess you could, but it'd be a lot harder.
But nice. Okay, and so now we're going to kind of getting into more of like the nuts and bolts. So, and this is kind of where I come in with my everyday work. So, when people think of Rawlings, especially like our big time baseball players, Heart of the Hide immediately comes up. What makes the Heart of the Hide, in your words, so special regarding baseball gloves?
I think it's the steer hide. I think it's just the quality of the leather that people have associated with it, and they know what to expect. I think that icon of the bull, just resonates with so many people, and it's become such a strong sub-brand for us. And I love the fact that it's funny to see the different generations. You talk to someone older, my dad's age, he's like, I loved getting one from the shop, and then I had to spend all season breaking it in. But then you have youngsters today that are like, no, I want it game ready. I don't want to break it in. So when we came out with HOH R2G Ready to Go series, I remember some of the traditionalists saying, what are you guys thinking? You are tarnishing such a reputable sub-brand of ours. And it's like, no, we're just introducing it to a different generation and taking what's great about Heart of the Hide, that same classic leather and the high-end pro features and the great patterns, and making it relevant for a younger audience. The core consumer is changing, and their needs are changing, and how they play the game is changing. So we have to change with that. And so I love that we have so many um, sublines of Heart of the Hide, and you can still get the classic Heart of the Hide if you really want to. But it still works for the athletes of today as well. So, and of course, all the customization that you can do with it is really special too.
I'm glad that you mentioned the bull. So on the so I got a Rev 1X here, but on like for everyone that's watching, so like on the Heart of the Hide, they got the bull right here.
Yep.
And for me, so I grew up, my best friend's name was Mikey, and Mikey was awesome. He was the best baseball player on our team, hands down. And he had a Heart of the Hide glove. So every time that I like think, that's like when I think about Heart of the Hide, it's always like, dude, Mikey.
The best players use Heart
of
the Hide.
He was so it was kind of funny how that's like that's like my third thought that comes up every time I try to do like a deep dive on like Rawlings, Heart of the Hide, like trying to really reach high for inspiration for writing like an email copy or something.
What would Mikey say?
Yeah.
What would his testimonial be?
I'll have to let him know that we talked about him on this podcast. But yeah, no, that's fun. So kind of with the Heart of the Hide, and you had mentioned it earlier, the R2G just not stopping with the innovation. So like the Heart of the Hide, it's like, yeah, we could keep it traditional, not super stiff, but stiff, and like you're gonna have to work, or we could innovate and make it a little more softer, bring in maybe some older dads that just want to catch playing glove, but they don't want to break it in, or younger kids that want a Heart of the Hide, but they don't want to do the full break in. What do you think? So just, you guys are always innovating. 130 years of history. If you look back and you can you're just watching, obviously 2020 hindsight, what do you think is the biggest innovation that you guys have made in 130 years? That was, sorry for baseball pun, but that was like an absolute home run in regard to like your guys' business success.
In gloves specifically?
Yeah, gloves specifically.
I would say probably some of the web designs, like the basket web in the 50s, the trapeze web, because those have become, duplicated by a lot of our competitors. And it's just, a lot of people think those are just inherent to the game or the sport, but those were our trademarks and our patents that we developed. So I think that, and just the Bill Doak being, the first really precursor to the modern day web that as we know it. So I think that with any historical innovation to gloves themselves, we've led the way, just because it's been, looking at how athletes at the highest level field. I mean, that's how we got Rev 1X. It was talking to Lindor and how he fielded the balls. So that's no different than in the 1920s talking to Bill Doak of the Cardinals of, why he needed more of a web formation. So I think it's just constantly getting that feedback from our players and evolving the leather type, the webs, the functionality of the glove itself. That's where, and of course, offering more colors and styles and designs, that's always going to be a part of it. But the true, I think, innovation comes from the functionality of the glove and how you're using it to support your defensive style.
Yeah. One of my favorite, just going on innovations for Rawlings, the late or second half of the 20th century, I thought that Rawlings was fantastic at tying in their innovations to what was cool at the time. And the one that always comes to mind is the fastback design that they used to have. I know that they're not as popular. I know Mike Trout has one, but they're not as popular as they used to be. But that was a really cool thing for muscle cars. It was the fastback design. Yeah. And I did a write-up on that, and I was like, that was so cool that they incorporated that back then. And then sticking with this glove, just 3D printing so huge right now. And to have that, for those of you, if you're not aware of the Rev 1X that I got right here, the whole back of this glove, it's not leather. It is it's a 3D printed material. It's super cool, designed to keep the shape. So people are always worried about when they use their glove, if it's leather, it's always forming to your hand and changing. And this is to kind of promote that backing always being the same. So it's super cool. And do you guys see, because obviously Heart of the Hide's pro preferreds. That's like the next level above heart of the hide. Those are super popular with pro players. Are you starting? And you mentioned Lindor earlier. He's kind of the flag bearer. Are you guys starting to see a lot of guys starting to adapt or adopt this material for their game gloves?
We are, and a lot of guys are still trying it out. So they'll order it as part of their glove orders for the season, and not necessarily game it. So I think that they're still getting used to it because it's so different. But a lot of the younger players that are coming up, especially from like the Perfect Game organization, a lot of them are familiar with Rev 1X. They were our testing subjects for that. They're used to it and they know what it's about. So they ask for it. So I would say it's like skewing to a lot of the younger athletes in the major leagues that are requesting it.
Nice. And one thing I would mention, you guys, if anybody's interested in this glove and learning more, what pros wear, they went and did a video with you guys, and their video on this glove is absolutely fantastic. It's like one of the, I watch a lot of baseball gear videos out there, but this is like top 5 of like the baseball gear videos I've seen. I really love the video
I helped
that they
film
did.
that with them.
You did? Nice.
Yeah, I remember talking to Mike Carrizza, the founder there, and probably like 10 years, maybe it was 10 years ago, reaching out to him and just being like, how can we get more on your radar and do more with you? And he's like, really, I'm just trying to, talk about gloves. So just give me access. And I was like, done and done. So we formed a great friendship. And then, we told him, we had let him know like we were seeding a lot of these gloves with the pros. We sort of teased it with Lindor, taking photos of it. And then we said, hey, why don't you come to St. Louis and we're going to put you in touch with our gloves team. We call him our glove guru in a friendly sense, but Robert Newman and Ryan Ferrara on our team. But we gave him, unlimited access essentially to how this glove came to be what it was. And so he did a fantastic piece, like you said, on it and helped explain it. And again, a lot of people had some preconceived notions of the Rev 1X given, what they knew, synthetic gloves, Nike had tried doing it. And I think what made ours different in a lot of ways was the science and technology and materials, of course, but it has that heart of the hide palm. So it's legitimate and it's based on, that so player like feedback.
The actual like part of the glove that touches the baseball is going to be, and actually for softball, because there's going to be a softball one. That is heart of the hide leather. So kind of trustworthy.
So
on that
legitimizes it. And, working with different companies that are, the 3D synthetics group that the carbon group that we were working with, they do things for all sorts of industries, the footwear, the dental industry, the automotive industry. So we knew the product was good in those other areas. So it had been out there for a little bit. So we made sure to keep an eye on it before we just dove head first. And a lot of people are still polarized by it. You either love it or you hate it. You talk to to the traditionalists, and they're like, what are you doing? I remember we had an eternal debate of what patch logo we were going to put on there. And I distinctly remember saying to my own team members, trust us. Let us use this really cool icon logo, because it goes against anything marketing. Like, you want to build awareness and equity in what people recognize, that red patch. But this, I wanted to sort of clean their slate of what they thought they knew about Rawlings, and almost didn't want them to associate. I wanted them to see Lindor's glove at spring training and be like, who did that? What is that? And not necessarily tie it to us right away. So it was reminiscent of who we are with the shape of the patch, but it wasn't screaming Rawlings, So that was a bit of a risk, but I think it paid off because it's so different from anything we've done, and it just seemed to fit that narrative better than our red patch would have.
Nice. Yeah, no, I would encourage, if anyone's not seen that video, I don't know if we can convince you in 8 minutes, but like, it's like, you'll see that there was a lot that went into designing the glove. It was not like decided one day that they were going to build
It's not gimmicky.
It's pretty cool. I would encourage everybody to take a look at it. So, well, thank you, Lindsey, for taking all this time with us today to talk. I mean, I know that if I was a listener, I'd love this conversation just with all the that you've shared. So we'll let you get out. Yeah, we'll let you get out of here. But we got 3 strikes before we get out of here. So 3 questions. We're going to do it like in the MLB. So you got the pitch clock now. We'll pretend there's a batter, or there's someone on base. So we'll give you 20 seconds for each 3 questions to go ahead and answer. So first one that I'm going to throw at you. So if you were using a glove, you got heart of the hide or pro preferred. What are you going to choose?
Heart of the hide.
Okay. Why?
Just classic. You can just count on it. I think you can do more with the customization, and there's different sub-series like I mentioned earlier that you could get a little more broken in or whatnot. So yeah, I'd have to stick with the heart of the hide, and I love the bull logo.
There you go. Yep, that was going to be mine. And, okay, so now I know on our calls I've heard you talk about this before. So you've been to an All-Star game. You've also been to a World Series, correct?
Is it?
Okay, so the vibe. What is better? Is the vibe at an All-Star game or is the vibe at a World Series game better? Go ahead.
World Series. I think it's cool. It's fun at the All-Star game, especially when you get to see your representative from your team. But it's just a whole different ball game. No pun intended at the World Series. When your season's on the line and those that win is right in front of you. So it's just a different atmosphere and more pressure. But I like that.
That's funny. And our last one here, and I think you might have alluded to this earlier, but who is your all-time favorite St. Louis Cardinals baseball player? Go ahead.
Well, you probably think I'm going to say Nolan, and I do love Nolan. However, all-time favorite has to be Ozzie Smith. Just I remember from childhood him doing the backflip, and now working with him and considering him a friend and a colleague, and he's just great for our brand. So I'd say Ozzie.
That's funny. I was going to guess. So where I went to college at, there were a lot of St. Louis people. Everybody loved Jim Edmonds. That was like everyone's. I know, but everybody's always like, oh, Jim Edmonds. I remember everyone loving him back in the day. So
he's a good representative too. But yeah, I'd say Ozzie and just what he's meant to Rawlings, and we just did, I'll have to send it to you, our new Red 1X video that we did with him and Lindor and kind of old school Rawlings, new school Rawlings. And, he's just always such a great sport and a good human being. So I love Ozzie.
Nice. Well, thank you, Lindsey. That was awesome. Thank you for taking the time today. Have a great afternoon. Get back to your awesome day.
Yeah, you too. I'll talk to you in our next marketing meeting.